Habertürk.com'dan herkese merhabalar. Ben İrem Görgü. Bugün yayınımızı Danimarka İstanbul Başkonsolosluğu'nda yapıyoruz. Yanımda ise Danimarka İstanbul Başkonsolosu Thierry Hoppe var. Kendisiyle Danimarka'nın yenilenebilir enerji projelerini, özellikle Rusya ve Ukrayna Savaşı'ndan sonra daha da önem kazanan enerji güvenliği konusunu ve Danimarka'nın yeşil enerji dönüşümündeki projelerini konuşacağız. Mr. Hoppe, thank you so much for having us here.
Thank you for the invitation. I'm very happy to talk about this subject. It's something that's very dear to my heart and to Denmark, as I think you know.
Thank you. Could you tell us about Denmark's initiatives in green transformation and renewable energy?
Yes, I think maybe a first thing to establish is that we have a climate law in Denmark. I think that's important to mention. That establishes what we aim for, and as boring as it might sound, I think it's important to remind everyone maybe that it states that we are legally bound to achieve a 70% greenhouse gas emission target by 2030, and to become net zero, or if you will, by 2050. So since then, there's been some additional adjustments, and we actually have now pushed forward the aim of becoming carbon neutral. That now is aiming. There's something we're aiming to do by 2045, and actually become a negative emitter by 2050. We're aiming for 110% greenhouse gas emission by 2050, which is something quite a novel and interesting. But so it's going beyond the target of the 1990 levels, if you will, and contributing positively to the global target.
Denmark is known for its leadership in offshore wind energy. Could you provide more details about your latest projects, about their scale and expected output or technological advancements?
Yes, that's true. Wind plays a huge part in the Danish green transition, if you will. We all have different opportunities in our countries, and in Denmark we're very happy to have a lot of wind. We have shallow water, so it's perfect for offshore wind. Already today, I think more than 50% of the electricity that's consumed in Danish households comes from wind. So there's a major expansion of that on the way, and actually just a few months ago, a new public tender was made. Today, to give you some kind of idea of the scale, Denmark has offshore wind of about 2.7 gigawatts installed. The public tender that was made is for 6 gigawatts, a minimum of 6 gigawatts, but this could be potentially up to 10 gigawatts. So you can see it's a multiplication of the current level that is quite significant. This goes way beyond what Denmark needs. It's normally said that 1 gigawatt of electricity is enough to sustain 1 million households. Denmark is a fairly small country with 6 million people today, so this goes way beyond what we need. This would allow us both to export excess energy to neighboring countries, which is something we can get back to when we talk energy security, but also an opportunity to expand a very promising, very interesting new technology that we might also be able to talk about, something called Power to X, which allows renewable. Well, it doesn't have to be renewable energy, but electricity typically from renewable energy that cannot be stored by a process called electrolysis. You can actually transfer or change that electricity into green hydrogen that you can store, unlike electricity. And you can actually change green hydrogen into, say, jet fuel, or you can change it into energy for transportation, for the agricultural sector, for some of those sectors that are, we call them hard to abate sectors, sectors that are difficult to ensure a green transition within. So this is a very interesting project. It's a relatively new technology in a way, or I shouldn't say new technology, but it's not something that has been used at a very large scale. So for Denmark to expand renewable energy and wind energy especially would most likely allow us not only to export energy, but to expand this new Power to X possibility that's very exciting on a global scale.
How does Denmark ensure the involvement of the support of local communities and stakeholders in renewable energy projects? Are there any specific programs or strategies that to enhance the public? Because while the government takes steps about the green energy, the impact will be limited if you don't involve the public in these projects. So what are you planning for that?
It's a really good question. I actually had to look it up because I was a little bit, I wasn't aware of how this is done. But you're absolutely right. Local communities need to be involved, and I think most of us realize that early involvement is probably a good thing. But I actually found out that the experience in Denmark is that about 10 to 15% of projects, renewable energy projects, are not realized simply because of opposition and the conflict that ensues from such projects. So I think that what I've been able to find out is that I think municipalities, and I have to say right away, we haven't cracked the code. We haven't found a surefire way of doing things. But most municipalities work with different kind of climate councils where they involve actually randomly selected people to involve them in the process and plans and so ensure that there is a democratic process around evolving renewable energy projects. But it's still very difficult to manage, and I was actually quite interested to learn that a major project by the University of Copenhagen is actually trying to look into this right now. The Department of Anthropology is trying to find out, on the one hand, what are the experiences, but also come up with very concrete, workable suggestions for how to approach this and ensure it's not to sort of quell opposition, but it's actually increasing the democratic process, if you will. So this is an issue. I think it should be an issue. Dialogue around these projects are very necessary. But of course, if we can increase that popular involvement and ensure a greater support, I think that's even better. But in general, I would say in Denmark, we benefit very much from a very broad popular support. So what happens often, I suppose, is that whereas people in general support projects like these, when it becomes very concrete, when it's something that's happening in your own backyard, that is where the issue sometimes might conflict with your, the one hand you support this transition, but you're also just not in my backyard. Additionally, I think, as maybe we will talk a little bit more about, but the offshore wind energy is where we are particularly strong in Denmark. And of course, when you start evolving or developing projects so far from land, I think you already there reduce some of the popular opposition you can have. There could be other concerns of developing things on shore, but on offshore. But when you do things 40, 50, maybe 100 kilometers from the coast, it certainly lowers opposition quite a lot.
How has Denmark's approach to renewable energy and green transformation evolved in response to Russia and Ukraine war?
It's had a tremendous impact, I have to say. Denmark was and is in the fortunate situation, most likely, that we are more independent today of imported energy than many, and I might even say most nations. That has not always been the case, but it has still shown the issue, or sort of made it clearer that we needed to work for energy independence. It was an economic security. It is an economic security issue, and it's a clear standpoint of the Danish government to rid Denmark of any kind of dependence on imported Russian gas. So it has led to an even more ambitious rollout of a certain number of projects, and it's all done with this clear intention of increasing Danish energy independence, but also contributing to European energy independence. So it has a number of components. And I should say, I mean, it serves a double purpose, because the war in our backyard has somehow put this issue into focus. But it's also, in a way, a good occasion to step up efforts, really, to achieve the green transition. So, you know, it's a good within a bad, so to speak. But it goes from anything related to, say, in private households, phasing out completely oil and gas based heating by 2030, that needs to be finished. In industry as well, and then increasing, for instance, through a major increase in offshore wind that I mentioned before. Also land-based offshore will be, together with solar energy, quadrupled from now until 2030. And then this quite interesting technology that we use in Denmark and a number of European countries, district heating, that also I think has quite a lot of potential in Turkey. That's using excess heat, for instance, in industry, from geothermal sources, wherever you may have it, and in districts surrounding it, using that to heat homes, etc. That is already a very large part of, especially the urban energy system in Denmark, and it will be even more so. So there's a clear path, but this is of course something that takes several years. So we need to do something today in order to be where we want to be within a few years.
And Denmark has 3 cities in the top 10 of the Global Destination Sustainability Index. What measures, policies and investments have been taken for this success? Because it is a really big success.
Yes, I have to say, again, your question surprises me. Actually, I was not aware of this. I have to say that as I mentioned before, the green transition and climate issue is really something that enjoys broad popular support in Denmark. So, and if you will, that there are expectations that this is addressed in every respect, and so cities play a huge part in that. I mean, they're the ones that deal with the way that we transport ourselves around, how we deal with the waste we have, how we heat our homes. Many of these sort of very close to the population issues are dealt with at city level. So I'm not surprised that cities address this. That's an expectation. People expect no less. So I think the fact that 3 cities are on the top 10 is more a reflection of the fact that this is an issue in Denmark rather than a target in itself. I think it's simply a positive spillover effect, and it's certainly something that I think in the hospitality industry they're using also to market Denmark and to make it attractive to some travelers. So again, as with everything that can be seen as a challenge and as something that needs to be overcome, something that will cost money, you can also see it as an opportunity. So this has certainly been an opportunity, and it's now allowing some cities to present themselves as sustainable destinations, which I think is great.
What are I know we talked about a little bit in the beginning, but what are the future projects and goals of Denmark regarding renewable energy? On an international scale, of course, of Denmark and international scale.
Yes, on an international scale, I think I've mentioned many of the things we do nationally. I think again, and by doing so, I think that Denmark really is playing into the European level, trying to working together with our European partners to increase energy independence. I think that cannot be overstated. That's an incredibly important milestone and something we work towards. And I think the ambition of what we're presenting, that goes quite a long way. A next step might be energy islands. That is something that also created some attention, I think, beyond Danish borders. So establishing energy islands that somehow work as collection points of energy created to really truly harness the offshore capabilities in the North Sea, maybe in the Baltic Sea, but even further away, from shorelines. Not only harnessing it and gathering it, but also allowing it to be distributed where it is needed at any given time. So I think that is one thing where Denmark really truly can contribute. I think Denmark will continue to be a very active and ambitious participant in global climate negotiations. I think we always have been. We've punched above our weight for years, and the COP processes that's also coming very close to Turkey now and neighboring Azerbaijan. And Denmark also is engaging very much with the Azerbaijani presidency to come and help them along, that we obtain those ambitious and needed results that must be seen. And then on a more practical level, I think what Denmark is doing in Turkey and a number of other countries in terms of government-to-government cooperation.
That was also my last question about the Turkey.
Yes. I mean, I can mention that we have a government-to-government cooperation on energy, meaning that the Danish Energy Authority is working together with their Turkish counterparts on district heating as one component that I mentioned before, that in our view has a tremendous potential in Turkey, and working towards establishing more of it and piloting it to see how it can concretely be used in a Turkish context, and energy modeling, which is a little more technical, but it's all about taking those, I wouldn't say hard-earned, but long experiences and that practical know-how that we have in Denmark, and rather than having everyone make their own experiences and sort of popularly said reinvent the wheel, take those experiences and sort of frog leap directly to some of those known results, those positive steps that can be taken. We do that with a great deal of countries, some of the biggest economies, some of the biggest emitters, because whichever way you want to take it, Denmark is or want to present it, Denmark is a small country, and while we might be far ahead and have done many of these things, we can probably have a bigger impact now by sharing some of these experiences, this know-how elsewhere. So I think that is something that truly can make a practical a difference. That's certainly our hope. It's been ongoing in Turkey since 2007 and still ongoing today. So I'm very optimistic and hopeful that will continue to show results.
I just want to ask, first of all, what do you think about Turkey's current renewable energy projects and goals? And other than that, what areas do you see most potential with the collaboration between two countries?
Yes. I'm not an expert, so I'm probably not the right person to assess anyone's, progress on these issues. I take note of the fact that the Climate Action Tracker, for instance, as an independent research project, is, I think, quite clearly stating that Turkey stands today in a place that is not ambitious enough in terms of reaching the Paris Agreement, limiting global warming to 1.5%. So I would, I take that at face value, and I think that's probably the case. I think more must be done, needs to be done. I hope that we can contribute, as I mentioned, through this government-to-government cooperation. I'm also quite certain, I must say, that I have quite a lot of faith in the Turkish private sector. I think there's a lot of ambition there. There's a lot of understanding of what's at stake. On the one hand, both because regulations and requirements make it necessary for the Turkish industry to address these issues, but also because they understand that this is, in many cases, there's a good business case for doing it. I'll give you an example because I recently talked to someone about it. Pumps, a specialty in Denmark, pumps for many uses, but not least for water. I mean, any residential building, any office building you take, you need pumps to distribute water. That is very energy consuming to have, but if you choose energy efficient pumps, the technology today is so accessible and the business case so good that the investment pays itself within months. I mean, we're talking less than a year. And after that point, it's savings all the way. So, Turkish companies, Turkish businessmen are good businessmen. They understand this, and I think that is extremely helpful. So I have a lot of faith that the private sector, especially, I think, will lead the way in Turkey, and I think that in itself guarantees a lot of Danish-Turkish collaboration, because we have been dealing with this for now 5, almost 6 decades, and that there is a lot of know-how and a lot of technologies developed in Denmark that are incredibly relevant in Turkey, and it's already happening today, but I'm sure that collaboration, that exchange, that dialogue will continue to take place in the years to come.
Thank you so much for your answers and once again having us here.
Thank you very much for coming.